Do you use privacy sensitive data as test data? Because using production data, what you mentioned, Frederick, is of course a thing. But if it's privacy sensitive data, then it's a different topic.
The question is, though, Wim, if I may interrupt, if people know what privacy sensitive data is. So the 72% might be even higher. Or lower, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind, totally. I think the answers are honest. I honestly do. I just think that there might be some disparity between answering yes, because they do use it, or the answers with no that actually still use privacy sensitive data, just they simply don't know that it is. And this is difficult to explain, because what is privacy sensitive data? It's using data that is considered personal data. Personal data is data that says something about a natural living person. If I can use data to identify one single person out of a group, no matter how large that group is, it can also be two people, two is a crowd, then all of a sudden it is personal data. And sometimes a database contains, let's say, data, not necessarily personal data, and the database in itself is not considered personal data. But somewhere in the back of a storage room, there's another database to which I have access, and combining those two data sets allows me to identify a person. Then sometimes that data set that was not personal data all of a sudden does become personal data. And this, again, as I said, is a problem because of the GDPR.
Yeah.
Now, there are exceptions to this rule, and it's not as clear-cut as, hey, I also have access through this client that was a client somewhere 10 years ago, yada, yada, yada. Now, it is a bit more complicated than that, but the fact that sometimes data is considered non-personal and then all of a sudden it can switch to personal data is definitely a concept that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part about this as well is sometimes there's confusion about this, and that's why we also, that's also interesting that the Dutch Authority on Personal Data, recently put a statement about this on the website, literally with the question: am I allowed to use personal data for testing purposes of my system of application? Yeah, and that's what I typically say now as well. It's typically not necessary to test with personal data because there are alternatives possible.
Yeah, I actually like this very much because also on the website of the AP there is an explanation. So as you might know, you have 6 legal bases to do processing of personal data, and one of them is to ask permission. And so everyone, when the GDPR came into effect, thought, well, let's just ask permission for everything, and then everything will be okay. But then the actual AP itself also says that asking permission for everything is not a very practical way to go about it. So actually what you should probably do is just try to avoid processing personal data altogether. And what the Dutch DPA says here is, well, there is a possibility, because if you can somehow change that personal data into non-personal data, but still get results that are effective for your purpose, then we're just doing one processing activity.